Welcome to the
Thank,
stage.
Yay. Thank you so much. And hello, everyone. I am so honored to be speaking at this virtual Pride event as a Black, ace, non-binary, autistic, sick, and mad activist, researcher, consultant, artist, burlesque performer, and as you heard, a political candidate. As we gather in this digital space to celebrate Pride, let's remember what it's all about. It's more than just a parade or a party, it's a protest against discrimination, against hate, against inequity. Together, we amplify our voices in a call to action for our society to reimagine and reconstruct the very structures and systems that seek to dismantle our freedom and right to liberation and joy. When I think of politics, I rarely imagine solutions. And the reason is entirely because I rarely, if ever, see people who share my intersectional experiences. I rarely, if ever, see folks who can bring a disability justice lens to politics and systems of change. And how can disability justice become infused into the mycelium of our social, political, cultural, and public administrative systems if we aren't even allowed to enter the space, or in most cases, actively chased away and barred from the space entirely? This is why we need more disability justice in politics. This is why we need more disabled folks, particularly disabled folks with multiple intersections of systemic and structural experiences of how the system actively excludes and oppresses our communities in political office. One of the pathways to liberation is for members of our community to be amplified in our leadership and power to do real reparative justice work at the core of the issue, policy, and governance. As a Black, ace, non-binary person living with a disability running for Seattle's District 5 City Council seat, I have become painfully aware of all the barriers trying to exclude people like us from stepping into political spaces. The traditional campaigning process in Seattle and across the country is classist, ableist, racist, and inequitable to its core. We need to reconstruct our idea of who's considered a viable candidate. We need people in leadership who are living in the actual reality for most of us, people who are renters, people living paycheck to paycheck or with limited income, disabled folks, neurospicy folks, folks in debt, folks who are housing unstable or unhoused, folks who are struggling to pay their copays or afford medicine, folks who are afraid of what will happen if they see more and more of their rights and freedoms stripped away. A viable candidate should not be based on who is wealthy enough, privileged enough, resourced enough, or non-disabled enough to fit this unrealistic archetype society has lauded for way too long. I have been told because I'm not door knocking for miles a day, I'm not a viable candidate. My candidacy should not be questioned because I have limited mobility. Even with a democracy voucher program, a city program that provides campaign funds to candidates, I needed to get over 170 people to donate $10 or more to qualify for the funding. I'm only the second person in my race of 10 candidates to qualify, but it took months. That didn't stop whispers that because a $10 donation, let alone a $100 donation, is a huge ask for my community, that I'm not a viable candidate. As an autistic, sick, and mad person, I need cognitive time to consider my answers to the candidate forum, and only gives 30 to 90 seconds to answer. Unless I can do that, I'm not a viable candidate. Of course, none of this is true, but all of it is a painful symptom of what continues to widen disparities for our voices and leadership to be amplified. Politics is one of those spaces where inclusion, marginalization, and eugenics have been both the product and process of its system. A system that isn't broken, but working entirely as it's designed. A system that has been classist, ableist, racist, and woefully out of touch with the realities of our communities who have been underestimated, under-resourced, and intersectionally impacted by inequity for generations. As a city, Seattle prides itself on the progressiveness, but as the old saying goes, faith without works is dead. Unless our allies and accomplices agree to cede power and leadership to those of us with both the knowledge and wisdom of what is needed for transformative and reparative justice, these paternalistic approaches that attempt to be a quote voice for the voiceless negates the lived experiences of us at the intersections of race, class, disability, queerness, transness, and all the other identities in the multiverse. This silences our voices, and this needs to change. Regardless of our well-intentioned allies and accomplices, as another saying goes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And we must also address systemic barriers that prevent our communities from participating in the political process, such as voter suppression, gerrymandering, and other forms of voter disenfranchisement. So as I close, I just want to share that as I've been learning and experiencing more on the campaign trail, I have made it a core point of activism to call out these barriers and systemic inequity until we see a transformative change to the campaigning process so it's accessible to everyone, regardless of their disability, income, and intersectionality. We've seen the ways in which, as Sins and Valid shares in their work, quote, the state solutions do not go deep enough to truly impact those most intersectionally impacted by the very actions of the state itself. I believe this is by design. Perhaps it's due to a sense of the very actions, due to a sense of urgency or feeling that a more equitable solution, a more transformative solution would ruffle too many feathers. That it's more important to keep the peace than the fight for what we know is right. Or as MLK once said, true peace is not merely the absence of tension, it's the presence of justice. This run has always been more than just winning an election. Mia Mingus once said something like, we deserve more than a seat at the table. Who said the table would be our base for liberation and justice anyway? Well, my campaign is a direct challenge to that status quo, to collective action beyond whatever table. The lessons I've learned on the campaign trail has strengthened my resolve and approach to progressive policy solutions and equitable strategies for social change, not only for myself, but for all members of our community who have experienced bureaucratic and systemic roadblocks to transformative and reparative justice. In order to shift these paradigms and deconstruct the systems and structures that perpetuate ableism in all other intersectional forms, we will need to begin with raising our voices to vote for disabled folks into office. Will it solve everything? Nah, but it will begin a process of transformative change from the inside out. The progress will be long and arduous, but the first step to the promised land is changing who is designing, interpreting, changing, implementing, and enforcing the laws of the land, who is funded, how we regard our society from a disability justice perspective, and beginning to untangle the intergenerational violences and harms that create the maelstrom of our society and policies. Thank you so much. I appreciate being here today. And to close out this speech, my hope and my call to action to have one more MLK quote. They said that normal and healthy discontent can be channeled through the creative outlet of nonviolent direct action. Now, this approach is being dismissed as extremist, but as I continue to think about the matter, I gradually gained a bit of satisfaction from being considered an extremist. Was not Jesus an extremist in love? He said, love your enemies and bless them that curse you, pray for them that despitefully use you. So the question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists we will be. Will we be extremists for hate, or will we be extremists for love? Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice, or will we be extremists for the cause of justice? Even though we face these difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. Thank you so much.
Woo! This is Claudia's disembodied voice, just saying thank you. That was amazing. Thank you. I am calling up to the stage both Rome and Elizabeth to do some reporting out on some more of the Pride activities we had today. So we are now transitioning to Rome and Elizabeth. And thank you for those donations. We see